sent to jobs throughout the country. There's a war that when they start.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Kurzwitz, and I'm with the Touring Fan Live. And tonight's episode, we are going to be discussing Jack White's tour, the No Name Tour, and my experiences over the 3 shows I saw over last week. Little Paul and the Tall Trees there, React. Big fan of Paul and Tall Trees. Check him out online, especially Spotify. Give him a like. Big fan of his. Been a guest on the show, done some stuff for Touring Fan Live. But today we're here to talk about Jack White and the No Name Tour and everything that led up to the show and me seeing him 3 times in a row on the rail. My experiences, all 3 shows. We do have Pat Hamou. He is the artist from the Omaha show. He did an interview with us. He'll be a part of the show. And then also I interviewed my daughter Charlotte, who was at the Omaha show, and her experiences that led up to her meeting Jack White and everything in turn with that. Before we get to all that, let me break down the lead up to seeing these 3 shows and everything that kind of fell in place with it. And I have a little bit of a head cold, so I don't mean to blow my nose in your ear, and I apologize, but that's where we are. So meaning me and my friend Brad, months ago when Jack announced these shows, we had seen that he was doing 3 shows in a row between St. Louis, Kansas City, and Omaha. And he was like, let me fly out. We'll do all 3 shows. And I said, that's a fantastic idea. Now, leading up to this, I've seen Jack White previously about 12 times in different formations, whether it's White Stripes or other things. But that led up to about 12 times. So been a fan of his for a long time. Had seen him first when he was with the White Stripes in Fairfax, Virginia, going all the way back to 2005 or 6, and been a fan since. So when these shows kind of fell in the lap, we thought it was a great idea. So we lined everything up with going to, with my friend Brad flying in, us going to St. Louis, Kansas City, and Omaha. The day he flew in, we drove straight out to St. Louis. We were real excited about it. It was the night before, spent a night at a hotel, got up early, and we only saw about, 6 to 8 people in line, roughly, right before the show. So we said, you know what? We hadn't decided if we were doing rail or not, but we said, hey, let's just jump in line. And the weather couldn't have been any worse. Constant on and off downpour rain, and they split up the lines in 6 different sections, and fortunate for us, we were able to get in, and we were right in front of them. The opening band for that show was a local band from St. Louis. They definitely probably newer to performing for a large audience like this, so they were definitely very, I don't know how you say this, they weren't mechanically built, I guess, for a large audience, but it was a fun show. A lot of, kind of gives me a little bit of, old school, kind of pop punk-ish. It was a fun show. It was good, but it was just an early taste to get us all lined up for Jack White. And I can't tell you how much this show just was like, just to start off with this, it was really, really good. I had no kind of hopes for the shows. I mean, I know that Jack definitely feeds off the crowd when it comes to building his set list as the night goes on. And, for the most part, I felt like the crowd wasn't like crazy into it, wasn't really heavy. They weren't like all over the place. They weren't screaming or yelling and stuff. But for the most part, I mean, I felt it was a pretty good crowd. He opened up the show with old Scratch Blues, which was great. And I was excited to hear some newer stuff. And That's How I'm Feeling was done, and I was just hooked. That live is something that is almost like a religious experience. He is just so into it. His movements between his ability to slide across stage, and there was so much room on the stage because it was a new venue called The Factory in right outside of St. Louis, Missouri, in Chesterfield, Missouri. And it was done so well. The way he was just able to move from side to side, and he had the ability to just kind of be playful and energetic. And we were really close to the stage. I would say arm's length between us and the rail on the stage. So me and my buddy Brad, who was to my right, were just really thoroughly enjoying this. Then it went through. He did Dead Leaves and Dirty Ground. Then he did Unknown. It's Rough on the Rats. Carolina Drama, a Rackton Tour song, which I wasn't expecting. Great kind of fun, just out of the blue. Play What's Done Is Done, Hotel Yorba, Cannon, I Think I Smell a Rat. I Cut Like a Buffalo, which, I mean, God, that Dead Weather song, can we get the band back together? I mean, it's been so long that they need to tour again. That's such an underrated band. Underground, Seven Nation Army, and then Lazaretto. 14 songs to start off the first set. A lot of energy. The crowd was having fun with it. It was a really fun set. And then he just came out, and then I'm going to tell you something. Archbishop Harold Holmes is my favorite song off the new album. And I'm so glad I got to hear it all each night, because this song is in itself its own religious experience. The way that, I mean, the meaning behind the song, the way he plays it, his style of playing, went into What's the Rumpus, Blackback Licorice, and then ends with Ball and Biscuit. The things that I really enjoyed about this show, and especially being up close, this is the closest I've ever been to a Jack White show compared to anything else, was I never recognized how like in tune the drummer is and everybody is to Jack White, because they have no idea what he's going to play. They have no, like, there's nothing written. So the drummer the entire time, I don't know if he ever looks into the audience. His eyes are locked with Jack the entire time. And the buildup of every song and how they're playing, and then like they're jamming. So he has to be in tune with Jack. Otherwise he's going to fuck up, and he doesn't. The amount of time that and like practice he's had to have leading up to this tour just to be built in tune with him is super impressive. And I think when you look back at just the level of how you have to be, like, I guess how professional you have to be to really be able to pull this off, because this is something that not everybody can do. Not everybody can just go on stage and not know what they're going to perform and just make it seem so just easy and just transition into each song so smoothly. It's almost an art in itself, not alone being so talented and being able to just put things together, like people that know what songs they're going to play every night. Like Foo Fighters, you go out there, you know what songs they're going to get day in and day night. You know, they have the filler in between where they talk about different things about the cities, but for the most part, the set list is exactly the same every show. You know what you're going to get. But with Jack White, I mean, you know, Pearl Jam, once again, big fan, right? They have different set lists every night, but the set list is on stage. So they know what they're doing. They know what they're transitioning to. Hell, the guitar, the guitar techs know what they're tuning them to, how they're moving things along. That guitar tech for Jack White, P.S., the fact that the amount of times he's on stage untangling Jack's chords, transitioning the guitars onto the mic stands, he's got 3 in rotation, how he's moving them along, and he just makes it look so simple. But the amount of work behind that is mind-blowing. There's so many moving pieces to this tour. And this tour really, if you look back to 2002 when they did his last tour, where they had the screens behind them and they had different pieces. Some of the shows had the curtains that dropped, others didn't. But the amount of other moving pieces into that, and that was, I mean, there's a lot less of that. It's just them, lights, fog, and the musicians. That's all it is, this tour. Yet there's still a ton of moving pieces. And yet it just moved smoothly. All 3 nights, there was not any ounce or hinkling whatsoever of anything going not as planned. And there was no plan, but nothing that showed anything that would have failed. So that was Chesterfield, Missouri. One of the cool things, too, at the end of the show, Jack threw a pick out, landed on one of the guardrails right in front of us. My buddy Brad was able to pick it up and get it, and it just was so torn up just from all the slides action. It was so cool to see. I'm so happy for him that he was able to get that. So realistically, we leave St. Louis, we drive to Kansas City. Now, I will tell you this, I was on a high. Like, I'm like, holy, if this is show 1, what's 2 and 3 going to bring? Because the ability to play a set list like that, have it transition so smoothly, the jamming they did on things, you know, it was just done in a way that was just like a masterclass in what musicians were supposed to do. I mean, this is just all in all, it's just so hard to do this. Like, it really is. The ability to even play like this and have it set in a set list or know what you're going to do is hard enough. But to do this the way he did it blew my mind. So Kansas City comes into play. Now, I live in Kansas City. I've lived here for a few years. Kansas City has become home to me. So this was exciting. Like, I was all lit, excited about this. Now, previous to this, we only had tickets to St. Louis and Omaha. Kansas City, it was up in the air if we were able to get tickets. We ended up going to the venue early to try to grab some tickets. They said tickets were going to drop at 3 o'clock. We were right at the box office at 3 o'clock, and we totally lucked out. We went right in line. Weather was not in our favor again. And this one was almost worse in St. Louis, just constant, just drizzle. It was just kind of cold. It was brutal. And we were about, I don't know, like 14, 15 back. And it was still like, we were like, all right, we'll get close. We're not sure how close we're going to get. Because now, when you think of the difference in the venue, right? The one in St. Louis is a brand new venue, only about 5 years old. The one in Omaha is about 2 years old. The one in Kansas City, you're talking about Uptown Theater that was built about 100 years ago. And it's got the inside is built in a way that it has architectural like wood pieces that are just not, you don't see anymore. It was built for theater and it was transitioned into a concert hall. And I've seen a lot of shows there. It's a great, cool atmosphere. And I was excited about seeing Jack there because the last time I saw him in Kansas City, it was in, Starlight Theater, much larger facility, seated all around. It's hard to get the crowd into it when you're so spread out and there's all the spacing between seatings. So I was excited about this. Me and my buddy Brad were about roughly, I don't know, 6 off-centered to the right of Jack White. And the opening band, another Kansas City local band, different than the night before. They were more like like a harder alternative rock band. They were so happy to be there. And the one thing that really hit me about this band was the lead singer, who's a female, and I have a daughter that's a singer and a drummer in a rock and roll band, and she's 9, and so I like her to look up to other artists. Was she came out, and you can see like right off the get-go how appreciative they were to be there. And that was really cool to me. Like they were just like humbled by the experience of being able to play there. And at one point, the lead singer starts talking and telling a story about when she was younger, that she, I guess, started off at drums and then went to singing. And it was because of the White Stripes that her brother, or maybe it was her dad, had told her a story and showed her Meg White playing. And she thought it was really cool to see that female performing. And that in turn made her want to be a performer. And that's where she got today. And then for her to be able to then in turn open up for Jack White is, a whole nother experience. So she was so grateful for the experience her entire time, and she kept talking about it, and that just hit home. And the fact that she started talking again about like giving back to the community, and she was raising money for a local charity that was bringing in personal hygiene products for females that couldn't afford it. I don't know. It really just made me really appreciate the artist, and it was a really cool experience. Jack White came on shortly after them, and I was not expecting what we got that night. I mean, they come out right out the gate with "I Want to Be Your Dog," the Stooges cover, and I'm telling you right now, the crowd was intense. This is the best crowd I've ever seen at this venue, and this is the greatest crowd I've ever seen for a Jack White show ever. Hands down, no questions asked. The amount of energy that crowd spewed to Jack White that night was intense and something I will never forget. It is something that is almost a legendary status in itself. And I'm going to tell you, after I bring it down the set list, the reaction from Jack 100% goes key for key, tone for tone, word for word, exactly what he says in the beginning, that he feeds off the energy of the crowd, and it's 100% correct. One thing, too, before I get into this that I thought was interesting was in St. Louis, Jack White's handler came out, said, hey, if you're going to take pictures, be quick. If you're going to take videos, be quick. Put them down. Just be in tune to the show. You don't have to live stream this. Like, we're kind of like giving people like, hey, go ahead, take pictures, but keep it to yourself. In Kansas City, they didn't mention that, and anytime anyone brought a phone out, security was on you. Like, they didn't want you having a phone out at all. So it was a total different experience with that side of things. So back to the set list. I Want to Be Your Dog, Old Scratch Blues. That's How I'm Feeling. Similar opening besides I Want to Be Your Dog from St. Louis. Black Math, Sure Enough, and Yes, I Do, which is a Captain Beatharf cover. It's Rough on the Rats. Love that live. Oh my God, that is such a good song. I can't say it enough. The new album is so underrated. I know for the people in our circles that listen to Jack White, we love it. But realistically, the amount of awards that album should be winning, it is just a home run hit of an album. Screwdriver, White Stripes song, Love Interruption, Cut Like a Buffalo, My Doorbell, which this was another one that just kind of blew my mind. In the 15 times I've seen Jack White, I have never once not seen him have a guitar in front of him. He always has a guitar in front of him. And the fact he took the guitar off and he's walking around with a mic in his hand, just singing, it was something that like I just wasn't expecting. It was different. It was extremely different. And I will say that I don't know if he knew what to do with his other hand that didn't have the mic, because like it's just different. He's a guitar player. I mean, he's a guitar player than a singer. I mean, in my opinion, he is one of the greatest guitar players playing right now. And for him not to have the guitar was just something I wasn't accustomed to seeing. So it was different. Then it went to Why Walk a Dog. And then let's see. And then it went to Sure Enough and Yes I Do, kind of just the reprise, like a little bit into it. Stop Breaking Down Blues, Jimmy the Exploder, Tonight, Hello Operator, which that was another home run, and then Underground. 17-song opening intro for the first set, absolutely home run for me. I didn't know what he could have done coming out that would have been like anything more. Opens up the encore with Steady As She Goes, and this is where the audience 100% showed totally gives a vibe to Jack White. The Steady As She Goes, and then the back and forth between Jack and the crowd was amazing. The crowd was just into it. This just put Kansas City on the map. I'm telling you, Kansas City does shows right. And the fact that it was just such a great back and forth, loved it. Lazaretto, and then Arship Harold Holmes, which once again is so good live, but the live version of it from the show doesn't have anything to do with the fact that he went on a 2-minute tangent ahead of time, preaching to the audience like a preacher standing on the pedestal of a church in a way that he was giving his sermon. It was done so beautifully, and it was done so well. It was such a kick-ass thing. And then started What You Cannot Finish, and then right to Icky Thump to Seven Nation Army, and mind fucking blown. The amount of times he recognized Kansas City, I love you, Kansas City, smiles on his face, like he was just having so much fun. It was an elevated version of St. Louis where Jack was just having a time of his life. And I was just flawed by it. Like I was just like, wow, this is what it's all about. I was on a high. I was like, damn, like this like, you can't get any better than this. You can't get any better than this. So we went back home, and then off to Omaha the next day. Now, my daughter was originally supposed to go to the Kansas City show, and she couldn't. So then we decided to do the Omaha show instead. So the next day, we traveled 3 hours from Kansas City to Omaha, and we had no intentions, once again, of waiting in line. As a matter of fact, there was nothing ever planned about any line waiting whatsoever for any of the shows. We were just going to enjoy what it was. But we got to Omaha, and we pulled in, and as soon as we pulled in, I thought I had recognized the van in front of the hotel, but I didn't want to, like, a lot of people drive, big vans like that, but nothing labeled on it. But then I saw Jack White's handler walking into the hotel, and I was like, oh, maybe Jack's staying here. I don't know. Maybe it's just the handlers. But as we were checking into the room, and me and my daughter were sitting playing on our phone, waiting for everything's over, Jack White walks out. Me and my daughter, which she'll give you her story a little bit later, are floored. I've met a lot of people in my life. I've never been starstruck like I was right then and there. He walks over. He didn't walk over to us. He just kind of waves and a big smile. And my daughter was like, I was like, oh my God. And I was like, man, the whole night I'm like, oh man, I should have got a picture with my daughter and him. Like, cause she would have appreciated that, being someone that, me and my daughter have this connection between music, going to shows, her being in a rock band. It's kind of our connection. I'm like, it'd have been a cool thing to have. But I was like, you know what? We have that story to tell. Didn't think anything of it. So we check into our room, we go to the venue, and again, maybe 8 people in line. And it's 3:30 in the afternoon. And I'm like, all right. So I looked at my buddy Brad. I looked at my daughter. I'm like, I don't know if she's going to want to stay in line. But I'm like, do you want to stay in line? She's like, yeah. I'd like to be rail. I was like, okay. So I went back to the car. I got our chairs. We sat there. We waited in line. My daughter was real vocal and had a good time with the people in line. It was kind of fun. They were all kind of, eating up the fact she's been to so many concerts and she knows some of the Jack White songs. She's a big White Stripes fan. It was kind of a cool experience. We get into the show. We get to rail, and we are, one off from centered. My daughter was literally the person next to the person that was right in front of Jack. The band that came on before them was amazing. local Omaha band. They had these, like, there was a male and a female singer that were vocalizing off each other. It was done so well. I guess they're going to Third Man Records in a few weeks to record their new album. So that's kind of cool. So there's definitely a tie-in between them and Third Man. So really good opening band. It was just, they sounded really good. And it was just kind of like a different vibe from the other two nights. It was a little bit more alt country, maybe. I really enjoyed them. Jack White comes on, like almost like military-esque right at 9 o'clock. I mean, like I think that the hand went right to 9 and he was on stage. And I will say this was the most different version of Jack that I've seen in the 15 times I've seen him. Not, didn't say anything. The entire show, didn't address Omaha the entire show, didn't introduce the band the entire show. And then also, we didn't have anybody that came out and said, hey, don't take pictures, or hey, limit your picture taking. And security wasn't doing things. So there was a lot of people taking video and photos almost the entire time. If you go on YouTube, go on social media, there's a lot of people that posted from this show on there. But let's go over the set list. So Old Scratch Blues opening up, and that's how I'm feeling. So same thing, St. Louis, Kansas City, Omaha, minus the I Want to Be Your Dog. What's Done is Done, Old Enough, Carolina Drama, Love Interruption, Tennessee Border, which that was the highlight of the night for me. I never heard that before, so that was really cool to hear that live. Started What You Cannot Finish, It's Rough on the Rats What You're Asking, What's the Rumpus, Freedom at 21, Underground, I Cut Like a Buffalo, Highball Stepper, and then Six Saltines. So once again, really on the money when it came to like a set list, 15 songs, opener. It was really cool. It was, and I was like, man, no White Stripes. Like, I was kind of surprised by that, right? But at that point, I'm like, maybe Heavy No White Stripes right afterwards. But whatever it is, it is. I'm just hoping that we get Archbishop again, because once again, I can hear that every night, and it's done so well. Comes out with Steady As She Goes, which is, very much a crowd favorite, but Jack wasn't feeding off the crowd on it. Like, he wasn't waiting for the crowd to respond back to him. He was just performing the song and then went right to the Black Bat Licorice, Broken Boy Soldier. And then he did the Archbishop Harold Holmes again, which, God, I can't say it enough. This is such a great song live. And then ended with Lazaretto. And then he took a bow with the audience and left. Very businesslike. Now, there was a lot of speculation in the audience of like what was going on. Like, was maybe the crowd not into it? Maybe it was just an off night. Now, listen, there's a couple things. One, this is the third night in a row that he's performing. And not only is he performing, but he's also driving between the shows. Like, he is literally, if you look on Instagram, taking the van from one city to the next city himself. So, and that takes a lot on the body. I mean, hell, I didn't perform any songs, and I was exhausted by third night. So I can only imagine what he's going through. Then there was also this article that was pulled up that was on a Reddit forum about Jack White saying recently that he would like to perform a show where he doesn't perform any White Stripes songs. He doesn't say anything during the show. He goes out there, he performs, and he leaves, which he did 100% in the show. So maybe this was his dream coming to fruition, because the next show that he does, which he does in Minneapolis, he performed 8 White Stripes songs the first night. So maybe this Omaha show is kind of the set list that he wants. I mean, listen, yeah, he start off with the White Stripes 100%. Is White Stripes the big, I guess, launching point for his career? 100%. But I mean, he's also built this entire other, mound of music and a ton of other music that is separated from White Stripes. And, and a lot of people that go to concerts, sometimes you want to hear that one or two songs, and they're not happy if they don't hear them. And a lot of people, know him from Seven Nation Army, Doorbell, Hardest Button to Button, things of that nature. That's what they know him for, and that's all they want to hear. And they don't recognize that his ability and what he's done solo with, even just the Ragnators, the Dead Weather, his solo career, there's so much abundance of music that Jack White has created outside of the White Stripes that is almost, in my opinion, superior to some of the stuff that he did with the White Stripes. So, I mean, like, to me personally, like some of the No Name album, there's so many songs on there that are, some are politically driven, some are, emotionally driven, religiously driven, that they're done in a way that shows stance and they have art and they're so much more involved in it in a way that it's more artistic and it's him. That's what he is right now. And what he created 30 years ago is that was a different person. So sometimes it's probably kind of a sigh of relief when he doesn't have to go back to those things and play the greatest hits, I guess. I wasn't mad at all. I mean, my daughter, I think she was a little bummed because she didn't get to hear any White Stripe songs. But, she did know Archbishop. She knew Steady As She Goes, so she was excited about those two. So the show's over. There was a lot of possibilities what happened, and there was the poster and tape on the poster knowing what was going on. And Pat Hamou, who's my guest tonight, and he'll be talking about that a little bit about why there was. So a lot had happened. We left the venue, I think, just buzzing. My buddy Brad, who I've been to a lot of concerts with, best friend, almost like a brother to me. We talk daily. It was a really cool experience because we have like two different personalities sometimes. Like he's definitely the more outgoing, talks to everybody in line. I kind of keep to myself, but we always come back together and he'll introduce me to people and he knows stories and it's just, and it's a great experience. And we kind of feed off each other from that. When we were walking back, it was just kind of a fun, like we did these 3 crazy days. It was a lot of fun. The next day we were able to celebrate, kind of the whole experience together, in Omaha for a little bit. But we went back to the hotel room. And my buddy Mike, who's celebrating his 52nd birthday, had flown in just for the show. And we were kind of just chilling in the lobby, just waiting for Mike to be able to go back to the airport, for us to go back to the room and just kind of relax. My daughter, who was, I think she's still on cloud 9, was, calling my wife and explaining to her how the show was. And she's telling me she wants to travel more for shows, which was cool. And it was just like tugging at the dad heartstrings, right? Like it was something that I'll never forget. Like these moments you have with your kids, especially at a young age, and being able to surround yourself around things that you love with someone you love and get them to kind of understand why you do the things you do, and for them to have an appreciation of it is something I hold cherished to my heart. So as we're in the lobby, we're having a couple of I think she was drinking a Sprite, I'm drinking a soda. And the bass player for Jack White's show comes in. My daughter's like, "Hey," again, I was shocked. She says, "Hey, great job tonight." And he kind of looked at her and was like, "Oh, I really appreciate that. That's so kind of you." And then Jack White was right behind her, and we both lit up. And she kind of waved at him. He smiled, and she asked, "I did or she did?" She says she did. I think I did. I don't know. Asked for a picture. Now, I wanted to make sure. And a lot of people have told me it was a terrible idea. Like, I didn't want to be in the picture. And it's not because of the way I look. And, I'm not the most attractive person, but it wasn't about me. Like, I wanted this to be about her and him having a moment. And I didn't want it to be about me. Could I have been in the picture? Easily, 100%. But I didn't also want it to be about, like, a dad. Like, I wanted it to show, like, her and him and the appreciation between it. And if you look at the photo of them together and you see that smile on her, she doesn't give that smile to a lot of people. I swear to God on that. That is a genuine smile. And he got down, he noticed she was wearing a white stripe shirt, like even like commented on it, like put a smile, asked if she enjoyed the show. And they took the picture. He was so grateful for it, shook her hand, and then left. And this is the second time I've met Jack White. The first time I met Jack White, I was with my son, and he was about, 5. This was in Virginia a long time ago. And he was the exact same genuinely nice person then as he was at that moment. And how he interacted with my daughter and that moment is something I'll cherish forever. Because it's these moments, I think, build her up to want to continue to do these things. To also show, like, how real these people are. It gives this sense of like, if this person is this obtainable and this nice and this normal, then maybe I can be a musician or maybe I can be whatever I want. Because there is a lot of people who meet in this world and they aren't who you want them to be. And then they always that saying of like, don't ever meet your heroes because they'll disappoint you. Well, when you meet people like this and they are kind and genuine to you, it just makes the world a little bit better of a place. And now my daughter is a buzz, and she's ready to go to more shows, and she's ready to go to more concerts. And even though they didn't play a single White Stripes song, she wants to see Jack White again. So for that, I'm forever grateful. So we dropped my buddy Brett off the next day. We had a lot of conversations about the show. I think we all agreed. I think if we had to put him in place, it was Kansas City's number 1, St. Louis number 2, Omaha's number 3 for us in the, I guess, in the feel of the shows. We had 3 completely different posters for the shows. We had a train for the first one in St. Louis. We had a cat in the second one in Kansas City. And then the third one, we had the Pat Hamou's female, like old school presence of like silent film with the rats on them. And so all different feels, different venues. It was just it just makes you appreciate like how different each show was. And super grateful for it. Even putting Omaha at number 3 is like, it's still high up on the list of shows I've seen in my lifetime because it was done in a way that I've never seen before. So with this being said, I didn't know if I'd come back, and I was thinking to myself, like, would I ever do Jack White 3 nights in a row again? And the answer is easily yes. It's definitely not for the, it's not easy. That's for sure. I mean, I'll be 40 in a couple weeks, and this is not like back in 2010 or 13 when I saw Pearl Jam multiple times in a week and traveled and did all those things. Like, that was easier for me. Working and then going to these things, it tears up the body. But super grateful for it. So yeah, so loved it, and I'm so grateful for it. And I can't fathom how talented Jack White is. His ability of just his stage presence, the clarity of his vocals, the way he plays guitar, the way he puts these songs together, and he builds a set list in his head that comes fruition in front of your eyes, and it's just like a piece of art. It's just like seeing from song 1 all the way to song 20, and so on and so forth, how he builds that set list up, and he's painting this picture for that city. It was stunning. And it's something that I'm super grateful that I was able to attend, and I can't wait to see it again. Jack White is easily one of the top 5 best touring acts, if not in the top 3 for me personally right now. I mean, just stunning, I mean, it's between him and My Morning Jacket, they're tied for number 2 for me. Like, it's just those two are just, and they're different, but they're similar, and there's similarities, but it's just, the stage presence is always there for me. Number 1's always gonna be Pearl Jam for me. It's a whole nother conversation. But man, I mean, Jack White just got so much more appreciation from me on so many levels between the show, the set lists, the venues, how he performed at them, and then what he did for my daughter. Just something I'll be ever grateful for. So loved everything about it. With that being said, I will say this: if you've never seen Jack White, you're missing out. 110% missing out. There is nothing out there right now touring at this moment. If he's coming to you or within a few hour drive of you, you need to take the time and go see him. It is his band, every part of it, between his key players, the bass player, the drummer, everything is locked and loaded. His stage hands are almost robotic in the way that they move, and nothing has failed him. I will say this, though. If you're going to the show and you plan on recording the whole time, or you're going to put up signs that say it's my birthday, or you're just throwing shit on stage, you're going to the wrong show. He's not going to acknowledge you. Out of every show I've ever seen, I've never seen him acknowledge a sign. I've never seen him acknowledge like going to a camera. He's not doing it for the individual. He's doing it for the crowd. And I will say that you need to recognize that pretty quickly. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go. We have 2 interviews after this. We have the first interview will be with my daughter, Charlotte, her giving her experiences from the show in Omaha. And then we're going to go right into the Pat Hamou interview. And then from there, that'll be it. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in. Here is the interview with Charlotte, and then the interview with Pat Hamou. All right, so I'm here with Charlotte. Charlotte is my daughter, and she is 9 years old. And she was at the Omaha, Nebraska Jack White show. Mm-hmm. Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
And how many times have you seen Jack White?
This was my second time.
And tell me a little bit about that day, about going to the show and some of your memories from it.
Well, I remember I had a volleyball game that morning, and then we went straight into the car, and then we started going there, and we got there, and we standed in line to get like front row, and we got front row, and I was in the front row of the Jack White concert, and
Well, let's talk a little bit about the line. So how long were we in line for?
like 3 hours.
3 hours. And how was that for you? Because you haven't really waited in a line to get rail before.
I like meeting new people, like seeing why they were there, where they're from.
No?
No.
No, so 3 hours in line, and it was cold that day.
Yeah, it was really windy.
It was really windy. And then we got inside, and we got right to the rail. Tell everybody where you were on the rail.
Well, I wasn't really in center. I was like the person beside center.
Okay.
Yeah. So there was like Jack White was right there, somebody was right there, and I was like right there.
Okay. Now let's talk about the opening band. We didn't know who the opening band was. We didn't know much about them. What did you think of them?
They were really good.
Okay, just really good. All right, now let's talk about the Jack White show. So you saw him once 3 years ago, I guess, 2002.
No, it was.
I think it was 2002.
I was.
Yep, 2002. I'm looking at the poster.
I was 7. No, I was 6.
You were 6. Okay. And now, what do you think of that show before we talk about Jack White? This show.
I liked it because I liked the theater, the Starlight Theater, a lot, and I liked how it was outdoor.
Okay, so you liked how it was outdoor. Okay,
Sure.
So when you think back to the Jack White show in Kansas City when you saw him in 2002, what comes to your mind when you think of that show?
Well, I thought about like the White Stripe songs, like Seven Nation Army, stuff like that.
And I think that show they had like the screens behind, like they had like the visuals behind it and things like this, where this show was more of just about
fog and like blue lighting.
There was a lot of fog in the show.
And yeah.
So you saw Jack White in Omaha. What did you think of the overall show?
It was fun.
It was a lot of fun?
Yeah.
You did dance a lot. Did you enjoy it?
I liked this show a lot because this was my first show that I like traveled to go. Because most of the time it was just like there was a show in Kansas City that we could just drive to really quick.
So it was definitely this is the first time we've ever really traveled to like
to go
just
to
for a concert. Yeah. Because we've been to like Virginia and saw shows in Virginia when we were there for like
but that's
Christmas.
not the only reason we were there.
Correct. This is the only time we went up there.
Yeah.
So it was a really cool experience. And this was the first time ever that Jack White's never played a show with any White Stripes songs in it. How did that make you feel?
Well, I know most of the White Stripe songs, and I only know a couple of not White Stripe songs, so I only knew like 2 songs.
I think you knew more than 2 songs. Just 2? All right. So that was a great show. I think but you said after the show you said you really enjoyed it and it was fun. He's super talented, right?
Yeah.
What was it like being that close to him and seeing him play guitar?
It was strange because the last time we were at his concert, I was in the very back row, and it was different.
It was different. Okay. Yeah. So let's go to this. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being really bad, 10 being really good, what would you give this concert?
Like a 9.
Oh, okay. A 9. All right.
Yeah.
Were you impressed by how Jack White played guitar? Like, was that something that really stood out to you?
Yeah.
That was pretty crazy.
Because he played one more. He didn't play just one guitar. He had like 3 guitars. He was just switching really quick in between songs. And
I think one of the things that stood out to me too, it's really interesting, is like how he's always like him and the drummer always looking at each other because they don't know what song they're gonna play.
Yeah, they have a set list.
So they're always kind of like moving along real quickly, and yeah, it's pretty nuts. All right, now let's talk about. So we get to the hotel early, and we first noticed that the van that Jack White was driving was outside, right?
Yeah.
And we noticed that Jack White's handler was there.
Yeah.
So while we're checking in, we go sit down because we're waiting to get checked into a room.
Yeah.
And then who walks in?
Jack White walks in. No, he walks out of the building.
He was walking out. That's right. Yeah.
And I was just in shock. I was like,
I think we all were in shock because I didn't say anything. We didn't know what to do.
It was a quick just walk by, and we went.
But he did give you a wave and smiled at you. So we knew that he was staying at our hotel.
Yeah.
We go to the concert. We had a fun time at the concert. We get back. One of my friends, Mike, who had flown in for the show, was going to hang out with us in the lobby for a little bit before he flew out.
Yeah.
And we're sitting in the lobby right by the front door.
Yeah.
And why don't you take over the story from here?
And so then his bass player comes in, and I said, "Hey, great job tonight." And Jack White noticed that, and he came in, and I asked if I could take a picture with him, and he said yeah. And he recognized my white striped shirt that I had on, and then he walked away, right, because he was just going back to his room, and I was just in shock. I was just like, I just met Jack White.
But he was really nice to you.
Yeah.
I mean, he was super friendly, and he was... There wasn't a lot of people in the lobby, too, which I think helped us, because if there was a lot of people, that might have been a little overwhelming. But he was super nice to you, and is it kind of crazy that for some... I mean, because you've been in a band with School of Rock now for 3 years, and you've performed multiple...
Jack White songs.
Yeah.
White Stripe songs.
Yeah. Was it weird to, like, meet the person that you, like, covered his music?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Would you want to see Jack White again?
Yeah.
Would you want to be on the rail again?
Yeah.
Would you do the whole wait outside? You do the whole experience again?
Yeah. It just can't be as windy as last time.
Well, we can't control the weather. All right, for some, if you were to tell anybody why they should go see Jack White, why would you tell them to go see Jack White?
It's just a really fun show. It's fun seeing how he plays the guitar, how he does it, how he does his show. Like how he was saying how he has to like tell his drummer what song they're playing to know like what song they're playing, and it's just a really fun show.
All right, so I think our next show we're gonna go see is My Morning Jacket in a few weeks. Then we got a couple shows lined up. We're gonna be traveling again in 2 months because we're gonna go to Third Man Records in Nashville to go see who?
Illiterate Light.
And you've seen Illiterate Light all over the place too. So
Yeah,
that's
this is
gonna be
my
fun.
third show I've seen Illiterate Light.
All right, so they have to hold up now to Jack. All right.
Yep.
All right. Well, I appreciate the sit down. All right, guys, I'm so excited. Tonight, we will be talking to Pat Hamou. Pat, who recently just did the Jack White poster in Omaha, Nebraska, which is the reason we're tying this into this episode, is my guest right now. Pat, thank you so much for coming on to the Touring Fan Live.
My pleasure.
Pat, I found out about you because I was on a 3-run shows of Jack White. I did St. Louis, Kansas City, and then Omaha. Omaha was the last one, and that's the poster that you did. I reached out to you because, there's so much, poster art for me. If you know nothing about Touring Fan Live, it's all about music and art, and poster art is something that I'm real passionate about. And, I'm always intrigued about the process. So, with this poster, especially with this being with Jack White, I had so many questions to ask you, and I'm so grateful for the time.
Yeah, of course.
But before we jump into this poster, let me ask a little bit about your background, because you have worked with some of the industry's top artists. Not just Jack White. You've worked with the Raconteurs, Slipknot. You've done work for the Tragically Hip, Blink-182, Trent Anastasio. I've looked at on your work. You did Queens of the Stone Age. You have Foo Fighters, Blink-182. I mean, the list goes on. And I've seen your work go back as far as 2011, looking at some of your work on Espresso Beans. And one of the cool things that I enjoyed was watching the progression of your work from your earlier days of 14 years ago to now. So let me ask a little bit about your history. Like, what got you into doing screen prints?
Basically, I started working with a concert promotion company here in town. I'm in Montreal, Canada. And this was like the late 90s. And I used to do just basically like pretty fast, like street postering, like when they needed posters, when it used to be a lot more easier and a lot more legal to just put up flyers and paste them on telephone poles and stuff.
Yeah.
So good friends of mine were working at a small concert promotion company. They knew my background in like graphic design and illustration because that's what I went to school for. And I've always been surrounded by musicians just as friends. I've been roommates with people in bands and things like that. So my artwork just sort of directed itself this way, not purposely. It just kind of happened. I mean, I love music as well, so that helps. So I basically went from like early sort of what I like to call the cut and paste period. And then as time slowly went by, I think a big turning point for me was, it's not around anymore, unfortunately, but do you remember gigposters.com?
Oh, I very vividly. We were my friend Brian Meth, who is also does a podcast with me, who does a lot of concert posters. We were just talking about
Yeah.
gigposter.com. And it's crazy. Like, it was there, then now it's Espresso Beans, and now it's been other variations. But yeah, I do miss that site tremendously.
Yeah, that site was just, I mean, I would upload my early stuff, and of course it was updated daily. I mean, this was like there's still a lot of posters now, but back then there was a lot of posters, and it was a free for all because the artists can put them up themselves. So there was no curating, it was a very free sort of space. So it allowed you to see like the kind of work that was out there, and it inspired you to do better. And that was sort of a turning point for me. I kind of my early posters were more of a money thing. I mean, there's still a money thing, obviously, but I didn't put as much of my heart into it, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Okay.
And then I was just inspired by the work being out there, and I just wanted to do better work. And I got to a point where I stopped using sort of a cut and paste approach and using sort of old imagery, and just decided I'm just going to draw all the posters from now on. I'm just going to, it's all going to come out of my hand. And yeah, the last 11 to 14 years or so that you probably went back to, that's probably been a reflection of that. So, and the posters, I still get inspired by today's poster artists, and it's an unspoken little competition between all of us to not one up each other, but inspire each other, and try to do the best work you can each time around. It doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes it's schedules. Sometimes they need the poster next week, that sort of thing. So, but yeah, that's sort of my background is just working with a local concert production company, and then they hired me to do some of the touring band stuff. So I would do sort of special gift editions that they would give. And then it's sort of snowballed from there, really. So
it is interesting. The one thing that I've always like fallen in love with, I went to school for photography, so film photography, like the transition from that to modern, photography with digital, and even thinking of like, the old ways of everything being on telephone poles and like the staples in it. And back then, you think about, how the artwork was used back then. It wasn't collectible. It was just really more of a promotional material, but it is how it is.
It was advertised.
It was advertised.
It's
Yeah.
advertised. Yeah, that's all it was. I mean, now, luckily, a lot of touring bands kind of woke up to this can be another viable thing at our merch booth. That's a special thing for one night, because these posters are way too nice. You're not going to put these up on the streets.
No.
Plus, the way that the world is now, nobody advertises on street poles anymore. It's all internet based. So the bands that really love doing the artwork and having these one-off, per night special items, have kept sort of the concert poster industry going. So, and in turn have allowed us artists to keep working as well. So it's great.
No, it is great. It's interesting too. We did I've done history of a lot of, posters and things of that nature, and the trajectory of like concert posters in general from that 2004 to 2005 market really, if you look at like everything from that point of how it all changed, when it was, just basically there was posters at shows previously, but it really changed drastically in that 2004. Doing my homework, 2004 to 2005 market is what I saw, and it's just crazy the cost and association. You can't see my room right now, but I'm literally in my studio, and I have 65 concert posters framed up on the wall. My basement. It's insane, and it's such an expensive hobby, but it's one of those things that I've always said. When you look at these posters and these screen prints, it brings you back to that day and everything leading up to it. It's almost like encapsulates the memory of that show, and there's so much to it, and it's cool. I love T-shirts and stuff, but the posters, I just feel like you look at it and it just brings back, encapsulates memories, and it's cool to tie in the artist and vision of what that poster is supposed to be with the day of the show and everything, and it's really it's a cool thing to tie together.
Yeah, and obviously the nice thing is they're limited editions too, and they're numbered, and and sometimes depending on where the posters are being done, they're signed by the artists for the show, or you can get artist editions afterwards. And T-shirts, who knows how many T-shirts they make, and you don't know, that T-shirt, you may not keep that T-shirt all your life, but you may keep that poster all your life. Yeah, it's a special item. I think it brings back, like you said, a souvenir of that night, a special memory, and yeah, I think it's just a great addition. And bands need more money at the shows than ever because of the way record sales are. So I think this just helps the bands as well. So everyone wins.
Yeah, it is interesting. It is. I love it. I mean, the 3 nights we did Jack White. Me being, I'm a Pearl Jam fan first for sure. Like Pearl Jam has always been my number one. Jack White is definitely My Morning Jacket. What was that?
There's still a bucket list one for me. I'd love to do one for them
Oh
someday.
God,
So.
well, you know what? You got to get in touch for Mr. T-shirt. You just gotta send Chris
Oh,
a
yeah,
message.
she's always. I know. We go back and forth, but he books so early in advance, like before the tours are even announced, kind of thing. So
It is Chris.
I'm sure it'll happen
It's
sooner or later.
It's gonna work out. I mean, I saw you did the Pixies, and I know that's up his. That's a Mr. T-shirt special. So,
Yeah, that was one for the promote specifically
Okay.
back then. So yeah,
Further out. Yeah, no, it's
yeah,
Pearl Jam's always been. I mean, that's what 90% of my concert poster memorabilia is definitely Pearl Jam. But it was interesting to see how the evolution of posters evolved. I mean, I was first 12 in line all 3 nights. We waited to get rail for all these 3 shows, which was an experience. But it was amazing to me that some of the people that were earlier in line were not even there just for rail. They were really there to make sure they grabbed the poster. And it's the there's always the day of like you're waiting for the artist to drop what the poster is going to look like, and then you get to talk about it in line. And Omaha was definitely there was a lot of people talking about it, and it was interesting because the night before they had the cat with the rat in its mouth, which I'm going to ask about the whole rat, and then this night had the rat on being held and on the shoulder, and there was all this, and then with the songs, of course having the rat theme and the No Name album. It was interesting. So I have questions about the poster, if you're willing to dive down. First one is, and I'm not sure what happened, but I did notice that all of the posters had like the black tape on it when we were.
I was going to bring.
You were going to. All right. So there was a lot of question, like, because nobody knew what was going on. Everyone's like, hey, there's a black piece of tape on the poster. And no one's like, we're not pulling this off. Like, we don't want to ruin the poster. What happened?
Yeah. Well, I to be honest, that was not my doing, and I got an email at 6:30 on Saturday, like the night of the show.
Okay.
Basically, the info I got, the tour was booked last fall,
mm-hmm.
and I think the initial show was going to be at the Astro, which is another venue in Omaha. So when I was asked if I could do this poster, because I just had done 3 posters for him in Toronto at the first shows of the year. So Third Man came back to me and asked me if I can do. I had a choice between the last 3 cities you visited, actually, and I chose Omaha just because it was the last one on the date, and it just gave me a little bit more time to do the poster because it was a bit of a quick turnaround. But they sent me the info as it being the Astro, so it went to press as the Astro, and I think 2 people at Third Man take care of curating the posters. And Jack White approves everything. He approves the concept sketches, which is great. It's nice to know when the artists are deeply involved, because sometimes you're only working with merge companies.
Okay.
So I think what happened is they forwarded me those block of dates, and it might have been just a simple cut and paste from Excel from last fall, and no one noticed. And I think the people at Third Man didn't notice the venue was not the Steelhouse till it was too late, unfortunately. So my AP copies will have Steelhouse on them.
Nice.
Properly. Will be sent new files on Monday, so I should have those next week. Yeah, I think that's why the posters were a little cheaper at the show. They were 60. They usually go for 80.
Okay.
They felt horrible, but the posters were done and delivered, and they still wanted to have people have the chance to get a poster, right? So
sure.
It's just one of those things. It fell through the cracks. Sarah and Ro at Third Man are awesome, and they probably just got overwhelmed and just didn't notice because they have an entire 2-month tour of poster booking to do, and it's just just human error. It happens. What are you going to do? It's unfortunate, but at least the date is right in the city.
Yeah, and it makes for a fun story. I mean, it was
Yeah,
it's an
yeah.
interesting one.
Sorry, I had a couple of people email me about that, going, "What was up?" And then someone told me about there was a Reddit thread going on about what was happening. But I think those posters got literally fixed the afternoon of the show because of it. So
it was there was a lot
that's
there was a lot of there was definitely a lot of chatter of like what people assumed, and everybody has their own opinions and assumptions, and who knows.
yeah,
So, first of all, I love the fact that Jack is heavily involved in the ideas and the approval process of things, because I do love the fact that an artist who is creating their own style art is involved in the art of what's being portrayed for them at the show, which is pretty awesome. So you were saying this is a pretty quick turnaround. How much information did you get to get this poster put together? Like, how soon was it?
about, I guess, 3.5 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe just under a month. But you got to give you need to give at least 2 weeks. It depends on the printer sometimes, but you need to give the printer at least 2 weeks to print and turn around and ship them. So it was a pretty quick one, but I mean that's sort of the nature of these things sometimes. They came to me for the Toronto ones pretty late in the game as well, and you just sort of you agree to it and you just grind it out, like that's just the way it is. You hope your concept gets approved quickly enough. Sometimes I'll jump the gun and think, yeah, this is good enough, I'm going to start it even though they haven't approved it. And when I do that, usually I'm right. So, and I did that for this one just to get a little time, because I hand draw everything.
Okay.
And as you can see, my stuff is a little ornate and detailed oriented. It's just the way I like to work. So I draw everything by hand, and then I scan it into the computer, and then I do all the colors in the computer and most of the typography. So I personally take more time. So I usually spend more time because of sort of the aesthetic that I'm drawn to, and the reason why people come to me for a poster is I guess they want it to look like one of my posters. So
Well, that's awesome. So
yeah.
I'm
So yeah, 2 weeks from paper to delivery, and then 2 weeks to print it. So
And how many hours do you think you have into this?
I get that asked a lot. I should really start writing down how much time. I sort of lose track of time. Usually it's not like crazy long days. Like I'll put in a full day, go out for a walk, get some air, clear my head, have some dinner, and then if I need to, I'll go back to it that night. But on a case like this, that's 7 days a week till it's done. So there's no
Wow.
really sort of write off weekends. But that's that's freelance life, right? So I'm the weekend after that or the week after that, I'm not be so busy. So you have sort of have to take it when it comes in. If you've said yes and commit, and I've never not delivered. So as hard as it may be on me physically and just creatively, you get sort of, how it is, you get sort of creatively exhausted just from being focused all day, and then you sort of pull away and you're just sort of like, even though you haven't physically moved, your brain is tired enough to make you feel like you've run all day basically. So
No, I totally understand that. Now, Pat,
yeah.
the one thing I love, I've said this way too many times. The one thing I love a lot of things, but when it comes to art, I like the idea of like the creative process, like what was coming to mind, what was the process in putting this idea to paper and the details. Now, when you get the information for this tour, because I know that in past tours, I think they're more particular about certain maybe imagery, and bands are like, hey, we want to do this theme for this tour, stay away from these
Yeah.
colors. I'm pretty sure you had maybe some limitations of what you can do or can't do. Is when you're given that, like, how did you come up with this entire concept, and what was given to you that allowed you to come up with this idea?
Nothing. When I did the posters for Jack in Toronto in the beginning of February, this was the beginning of a new tour. So I checked in with my contacts at Third Man, and I said, "Is there any do's and don'ts, basically, on this run?" And they give you a list of those, like nothing dark, nothing too dark. Jack likes to stay away from Catholic imagery,
Okay.
because has been said about his Catholic upbringing and things like that. And so I usually just run with I'll start with, I'm a big fan of Jack's anyways. I have to be honest, not every poster I do I'm a fan of the actual band, but I'm a fan of the process. And you know, so I still enjoy the work, even though I might not listen to the band on a regular basis. But I think Jack White is a pretty special performer out there, and I've been a fan for a long time, since the White Stripes. So I always enjoy working, and I always sort of, I look at the song titles, I'll read lyrics just to see what hits me, and a lot, this one, for the Toronto posters, I bounced off what's the rumpus. I don't know if you saw the Toronto posters that I did.
Yeah, the three, right, with the investigators,
Yeah.
with the you had the record player, then you had the cats coming up the stairs. Yeah, I saw all three. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, and basically, yeah, by the third poster was the third man. So there was all sort of little hidden things in there. And Jack loves things in threes because he's Jack White the third. So there's always elements of three. So in those posters, everything was coming in threes for each poster.
Oh, that's pretty clever.
And for this one, I went off It's Rough on Rats, because I thought just visually it was something I could bounce off. And then my posters are also influenced by what I'm doing or what I'm reading or what I'm watching. And I've been watching a lot of silent film over, a couple of weeks before the poster got in, I got asked about the poster. So I was sort of drawn to these actresses from that time period with these big circled eyes for makeup. And I know Jack has an aesthetic towards that. Sometimes he'll just post these random things on his Instagram with no explanation.
Yeah.
So you get a sense of, because I think his social media is handled partly by him and partly by his team. So when you get things like that, you kind of sense that it's him posting something. So I kind of just work towards what would Jack like, and then it didn't work out for this poster, but sometimes for my posters, I'll look at the city itself and see if there's anything I can dig out. Visually interesting, nothing against the people of Omaha, but I couldn't find anything I could really lock into visually. So I went with a sort of a more striking image of that figure and the rats, and there being three rats, because of the threes. So I wanted something a little bit more striking and a little bit more simpler than the poster I did in February, just to change it up. So that was basically the story behind that. So
well, I can
it was partly
I can
his
tell
influence
you
and just my life influence of what's going on with me. So
that's awesome. Well, I can tell you from I'd never been to Omaha before until this past trip. I don't know if that it would have been anything you could have added to the poster from Omaha.
I looked. Yeah, I know. I tried, but I was short on time, and I'm like, I got to bang this out. So.
No, it was an interesting place. I didn't know what to expect going into it, because I mean, I've never, it wasn't like Omaha, Nebraska's a vacation destination. But
where are you from?
I'm from Kansas City, so we're out of the Kansas City market. So, but I'm originally from Boston, Massachusetts. So,
okay.
So Omaha, Nebraska is not like, hey, we're gonna go vacation in Omaha. I will tell you this: the hotel we stayed at was amazing. The people there were absolutely grateful and super nice, and a lot of vintage and a lot of great food. But yeah, it's a cool place.
Yeah, they probably don't get a lot of shows. Who knows?
Interestingly enough, the venue we went to was brand new. So the Steel House, which is it was only open for 2 years, where he played. The sound was done really well. He really took over the stage. It was an interesting place. It was a really unique show altogether. I mean, I'm definitely breaking that down a lot in this episode. It's just this was I saw 3 different versions of Jack over 3 days in St. Louis, Kansas City, and Omaha. And it was just it was interesting to see how different he was, personality and everything. It was a great experience, and Omaha is always gonna be close to my heart. I took my daughter to that show, and she got to meet Jack.
Oh,
We ended up staying at the same hotel and just kind of worked out. So super grateful for that. But yeah, no, it's all good. So I ordered the poster from you, so that is going to be going up in the house with my daughter. So I can't wait to put those two together. But yeah, no,
great.
it was great. It's cool, and this show is definitely going to be close to my heart. So having this poster with his artwork and being able to look back at those memories of like being on the rail with two good friends of mine and my daughter, and then like after the show, her meeting Jack White and just this picture of my daughter like smiling ear to ear, just because the odds of meeting him, and then also, I've met him in the past with my son, but meeting him and just him being this genuinely nice person, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's funny. This is I'm going to say my fourth poster for him, and done two for the Raconteurs. I've never met him. No, it's just one of those things. Like I said, I deal with third man on these, so
Sure.
there's just hasn't been there hasn't been an opportunity to meet him. And then on this tour, unfortunately, he didn't come to Montreal, so he did 3 nights in Toronto, and I couldn't get out to there in time, so I was too busy. But I've heard nothing but great things. I saw him on his last tour.
Okay.
And I've seen him quite a few times before that. So, but I love that he works with no set lists, and he just kind of is going to give you the show that he feels he's getting back from the crowd, which is amazing.
It is, and I will say that like the one thing that I loved about this tour that I felt was different than the last tour was, you have his drummer from the Raconteurs on in this tour, and he is so in tune with Jack, like he's just waiting to find out what he's gonna play, and he is. I don't know if there's ever a time that he ever looks into the crowd because he's so locked on to Jack of like what he's doing and how to get these jams, and it's such a tight. The band is so tight. It's such a good experience, and it's so well worth the money. You don't have artists that do what he does nowadays. It's just so rare.
And I've watched the footage from this tour, and it looks amazing, and I wish I had a chance to see it. But you have to really admire him. He's built his own little empire, and he's gone out on this tour, and he's driving himself and his bandmates in a van, and I'm sure there's an equipment truck following them. He's not doing the tour bus thing on this tour. He's playing smaller venues. He's offering $20 student tickets at every show, starting at like 5 or 6 p.m. He's really like he's a special performer. He's really giving all he has, and he's I don't think he takes advantage of his audience at all. And I think that's why he's still super relevant. Plus, he's an amazing guitarist and a great songwriter. And I don't know what else to say. I think he's a beacon of a good guy in a what can be a pretty shitty music business sometimes. So he doesn't take advantage of people.
I agree with you. I got 2 more questions for you. The first one is
Sure.
the White Stripes are up for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year. Do you think this is the year they get in?
I hope so. They should. I don't see why they wouldn't, but who knows? I don't follow that stuff too closely, but they definitely deserve it. So
I agree with you, and it's interesting because I think that there's 2 versions of Jack White. There's the White Stripes, and then there's Jack White solo, and I think that on both those merits alone, you can see him get in twice. I mean, just the one of the greatest parts of an interview that I read recently about Jack White. He talked about the Seven Nation Army, and like I guess they went to a baseball game with like Conan O'Brien and a couple other people, and Seven Nation Army came on, and he just sat there and like just watched, and I think it was Conan O'Brien was like, "Man, that's your song." He's like, "Nah, it's not my song really anymore. It's bigger than me." And it's
I know, and that song gets played at every sports arena now. It's crazy.
It is. It's insane.
Being a good Canadian, I watch a lot of hockey, and you can hear it being played quite often.
Oh.
And I read some stuff on Reddit about the Omaha show that people were really disappointed that he didn't play it, but that's how it goes. It's just he's not going to play every night. So.
Well, there was an interview I think last year that Jack White had said that like he envisioned that there's a show that he only wants to play his solo, like his no White Stripe stuff, go on the stage, not say a word, and leave. That was like that was a dream of his. It's in an article, and that's what he did that show. He came on
Oh, great.
stage. He didn't say a word. He never acknowledged the audience. He never
Oh,
got the
weird.
audience involved in any of the songs. He never. It was the first show he's ever performed that he didn't play a White Stripes song in ever. He played the show. He did the show, and he walked off. And he didn't even introduce the band. Never once said Omaha, Nebraska. Nothing. He did what he did, and he walked off very businesslike in a way that I've never seen before. And it was different. And it was, like I said, every show I saw for three nights in a row of traveling was different. And this one was a very business Jack White. And it was something. It was done really well. It was different. No White Stripes. I felt bad for my daughter who was looking forward to hearing some White Stripes, but I said, it's you can't get everything. And then 45 minutes later, she meets Jack White. So I mean, you can't complain.
No, for sure. Do you think that was a reaction to the crowd's reaction? I don't know.
So the crowd was in Omaha. So I'm on the rail, and I can only go by like what the like in front of me and a little bit behind me. I would say that
Yeah.
this was probably the one crowd that wasn't the loudest and it wasn't the most enthusiastic of the three. Kansas City for me, which was the show of all three, which is probably out of all the 15 Jack White shows I've seen, that was the best show I've ever seen of his. I mean, he was just smiling, and I mean, he did Doorbell without a guitar in front of him. He sang it just on a mic. I've never seen him before without a guitar in
Oh,
front of him. Yeah, it was crazy. And he was like talking about how much he loved Kansas City. It was just a different version. And then St. Louis was like a mixture of both. Like the crowds were popping for some songs and not so much for others. And like he was
yeah.
like he talked, but he wasn't as much. So maybe that's why he was the way he was, or maybe this was just him.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's in a funny position as well. Sometimes, like when you're known for one certain song, and that's some people just go out because they want to hear that one song, and they're just sitting around waiting for it. When it doesn't come, they're disappointed. But Jesus, that song is what 20 years old now, if not more.
Crazy. I know. Really, it makes my back hurt a little bit when I think of that. But yeah, but I still was intrigued, like the amount of music he played that night and the way he ran through it. It was done so well. And I mean, that's just him. I mean, he is a true performer. I kind of, I was talking to somebody about his performance and his style of playing and the way he performs and stuff. And he's kind of like a modern rock and roll Elvis in a way, like more like the way he performs and his control and everything. It is done so well. So I'm really excited. And then last question for you is: I know that you've done a lot of shows. What is the one band that you haven't done yet that you want to make a poster for?
Current band? I can't really think. I've some of the bigger players it's fun to work for, but it's not stuff I really listen to, like Dave Matthews.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big it'd be nice to throw my hat in the ring for a poster of his at some point. I don't know. I think I've done pretty good. I got to do the Foo Fighters a couple of years ago, which was nice. I'm a big fan of Queens of the Stone Age, and I got to do that. I don't know. Some of the stuff I like is the smaller stuff that doesn't really do posters as well as much, So I don't know if I really have a definite answer for it,
Okay.
I wish I could give you a better. I really want to do this, but I can't really. Yeah, because some of the stuff that I'm into currently, they don't do posters anyways. So it doesn't matter. Yeah. So.
Well, I hope that as many Pearl Jam shows as I go to, that maybe one day we'll get a Pat Hamou Pearl Jam poster.
Yeah, no, that would be great. So, hopefully that'll happen. It looks like I'm doing my first Billy Strings poster.
Nice. Good for you.
I'm working on that. So that's one of the ones, just because it's another artist who really loves posters and poster design and is involved as well. So that'll be my first time working with him and his team. So that'll be fun. So I'm kind of playing with ideas right now, and I've got a couple of things percolating. So
Well, that's awesome. Well, Pat, first I want to say thank you so much for coming on tonight. Definitely
Yes, yeah.
give Pat a look online. If you're on Instagram, check out Pat Hamou. It's PATHAMOU. Or you can go to his website where they still, as of today, have some copies of the Omaha poster. You can go to www.pat/Hamou.squarespace.com and get that poster. So, Pat, once again, thank you so much for coming on, and I look forward to seeing more of your work in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Anthony.
No problem.
I pop up